Welcome to P Passionate W World, R Radio N Network, LLC, a multimedia company. Ann Arbor, Michigan, Boston, Massachusetts, Liverpool, England, Melrose, Florida, Los Angeles, California, Fullerton, California, Washington, D.C., Chicago, Illinois are one of the many broadcast homes of PWRN, a multimedia company. The world in your hands. And now, without further ado, let me present to you one of our many hosts and their programs.
Good evening, everyone. This is Flash Silvermoon for What the Animals Tell Me. And boy, they got lots to say. This is a very significant evening, which is why the program tonight is called Blood Moon, Hurricanes, and Tree Magic. Takes up a lot of room there. The Blood Moon is one of the names for the full moon in Aries, which is where the moon is tonight. And of all the moons all year long, this particular one is the most dangerous for the animals, and I'll explain. Part of the reason is in the ancient times, in some cultures, it was a time of making offerings of the animals, and some vibe of that kind of stuck. Also, Aries, of all the full moons all year, there's a tendency for the most aggressive / violent behavior to be brought out. So I always encourage people tonight, if you can keep your animals in, do it. Now, I don't mean don't let them out for a minute to pee, but basically there's something about the energy that makes it less safe, and I've seen it time after time after time. And it applies to us as well. It's not a good night to go be with people that maybe, like a bar or a big concert or someplace where there's a lot of energy gathered and you don't know what's going to come of it. So that's a little bit about the blood moon, ancient time of animal sacrifices. And, not all cultures did that, but it was enough done that it's kind of left an imprint. So, hurricanes, I tell you, I'm still worn out with a little bit of PTSD from the storms, and they say there's another one rolling around out there. So I encourage everybody to think of the 3 Ds. And that's not giving you license to just point a hurricane in another direction and save your butt. But it's about asking Spirit to divert, one of the Ds, to dissipate, D2, and dissolve. So that you ask that the most good can come from the storm and the least harm for the highest good of all. Let this particular storm do the most good and the least harm. That's basically what you're asking for. And it's a good idea. Wishing it goes out to sea, wishing, just so that it doesn't hurt that many. We have so much difficulty going on right now, particularly over here in the Florida islands areas, poor people in all the island countries. So much devastation, not to mention lots of people doing violent things with guns. So I'm not going to lay out a whole big bummer, because it's just a matter of saying, okay, we've got some violent energy to handle, and we may all want to do some prayers for peace to tone it down. Which brings me to the tree magic here at Moonhaven. And fortunately, I definitely got my mojo working with some friends. And the trees here, they really don't want to fall on the house. And, you just look outside and, there are certain trees that are not as safe. The water oaks and sometimes the pines are going to give you trouble. But the live oaks, the reason they call them live is because they stay alive for a long time, and they know how to maneuver. I live in a live oak grove. Say that 3 times. Anyway, here at Moonhaven, the trees have surely been teaching me. Some 10, 15 years ago, in meditation, my guides, or perhaps the devas of this place, spoke to me of what they wanted me to do for them, and they were quite specific. They wanted me to arrange stumps, bowls, and stones around 4 particular trees. So, as I began to fulfill my task, I noticed that the 4 trees chosen actually made a cross in my yard. In the east, a great old grandpa pine stands, so solid, and you can feel the protective yang energy coming through when you begin the ritual there. I was asked to put these large bowls at the foot of each tree, and they're basically kind of like the top part of a bird bath. So I got 4 cement bird bath bowls and positioned each one at the foot of each tree with a grid of magical stones in each, and filled them with water to make a tree essence in each bowl. I was told to make these sacred spaces, and the animals and people could come and sit and drink from the sacred bowls. One of the secrets to my dog Apple's success in living a good 15 years, actually he lived 18 years, in his large and often troubled body, was that he routinely drank from the bowl at the foot of the pine, which I came to understand as the bowl of new beginnings. He drank from it every day when we went out, and clearly it was water of rejuvenation. I'm sure of that. I'm sure that the wild animals enjoyed it as well when they needed the lift. I saw my horse and several of my cats drink there as well. Sometimes I would anoint my brow with that water too. When all 4 of the bowls are clean, clear of debris, and full of water, Moonhaven runs and just hums in appreciation. I prefer to let the rain fill them up, but in this time of drought, well, I was writing this when it was a time of drought, sometimes I need to fill them myself. The second sacred site and tree that I was told to honor was the magnolia, and that one sits in the south. Her leaves have created a circle under her greenery, and her bowl is filled with water, a large rose quartz, and some other pink stones. Sometimes I have given offerings of honey here and more tumbled rose quartz pieces. She told me that all who needed to soothe their hearts could come and hug on her or just sit with her to feel better. When I see my animals drink there, I realize that they need a little extra something, and so I try to give it to them. The energy under her arms is sweet and feminine and is surrounded by a grove of tangerine and sour orange trees that I must walk through to get to her. Under these trees, I was told that the energy of children played, and you can feel that light-hearted energy, and perhaps a fairy or 2 as well. As you walk from Magnolia to the west, to the sacred palm tree, you can't help but stop to honor and appreciate Grandmother Tree, and she really runs the joint. She's a 500-plus-year-old live oak that has been struck by lightning and not only survived but thrived. What a place for someone named Flash to live, right? Didn't put that together till sort of recently. The grandmother tree is the reason that I bought Moonhaven, and she is a humongous magical earth sculpture. Clearly, I was sent here to be her guardian and student. And I've spent the last, 36 years doing hundreds of rituals at her feet, where no doubt native people have done ritual for hundreds of years. If you look exactly due west from the pine tree and beyond grandmother tree, you would notice that the palm tree of the west is exactly lined up. She is quite lovely, and I must keep her fronds from dropping all over her sacred space. Hers is a space of spirit and reflection, and I surround her bowl with fossils and petrified wood for the ancient spirits that might come. She has quartz, grid, and some Andean blue opal in her bowl as well. Rounding the corner, you would find a cool pool, a large horse trough with the 5 to 10 pound crystals in a grid, which soaks up the energy of a vortex that runs underground. Sometimes I bathe in it, and sometimes my mare drinks from it when she was still here. Several feet beyond is the last tree of this magical group, and I call her the fairy oak. She's also a live oak like Grandma, and many other trees that form a grove around my home. Here in the northern sacred site for manifestation, she has a bowl with a large, deep amethyst cluster above it and another 5 stones gridded inside. I change the position of these stones from time to time if I want to manifest a particular thing. The fairies asked me to make them a crystal playland, and so this area is full of little nooks with shiny stones to delight. Walking around these sacred sites from the east and back is a blessing in itself and can be as long or short as one desires. I find great serenity here and love to make my rounds with a cat or two in my entourage. My mare China Moon has been known to follow me for a time on my journey, and I'm sure that my new pup, Happy, will do the same, bringing her exuberance and joy to grace these sacred spaces. To my surprise, I've been told that this style of waterwork was done by West Africans. I have been told that this style of waterwork, yes, the West Africans, and I do have such a strong connection with the African ways, no doubt from a past life there, which I've remembered through regression. Some members of a Yoruba clan here near Gainesville were my parents then and our family now, so perhaps their ways stuck with me. My Egyptian memories and connections are even stronger roots to the continent of Africa. So we'll leave Africa for a moment and take a quick break, and I'll be right back with more tree magic.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ed Robertson, host of TV Confidential. Thank you so much for listening to our program on PWRN, Passionate World Radio Network. If you like TV Confidential or any of the other programs you hear every week on PWRN, please consider supporting this station by becoming a patron of Passionate World Radio Network through Patreon. It is easy to do. It won't cost you more than a few dollars per month. And best of all, you will help PWRN continue to educate, enlighten, and entertain our global audience of 10 million strong and growing. For more information, go to patreon.com/PWRN. That's Patreon, Patreon, patreon.com/PWRN. And thank you again for listening.
Okay, welcome back to Moonhaven, and this is Flash Silvermoon, speaking with you for What the Animals Tell Me. And I've been taking you around the sacred sites in Moonhaven, and here's a little bit more about that. I have a bench in my yard right under a large Myers lemon tree. It was only a stick in a pot from my friend Carolyn's tree, from Alabama, whose lovely foliage has spread out, hosting easily 50 or more lemons. Last year, my horse, a sweet gardener sometimes, trimmed the lemon tree, and it cost me a year of fruit, but like life, the new growth has been wonderful. I also have a key lime right next door to that. Everything grows in my yard. It really does. As I sat under her bough of the lemon tree, I felt deep wisdom and wondered if she possessed a special power that I was to learn. Months ago, when I started again making gem elixirs in earnest, my tangerine trees, which are 7 in all, well, now they're more like about a dozen, all spoke in a disarmingly sweet voice, asking if they might not be included in this work. I was stunned and delighted to hear from a new part of my garden. Perhaps they were talking all along, and I just finally listened. That's how it works sometimes with the animals and the plants. Either way, contact was made. This new project involves my making various gem elixirs, as I've been doing for many years. And then I started sending some of them to Texas to a friend who makes earth angel oils to make special magical spritzes. So I'm waiting to hear from her. She perhaps had some problems in the Hurricane Harvey because she was in the area of Texas that was so upended. So I'm hoping that she's still around making her beautiful oils, because I liked combining my stuff with hers. When the tangerine trees spoke, I mentioned their words to Helen, and she agreed that she would use more tangerine oil in the mixes. As if that confirmation was not enough, a woman friend who works with Chinese herbs and medicine called, and I told her of the tangerine message, and she told me that tangerine peel is the strongest mover of qi in Chinese medicine. One could use tangerine peel if you were dealing with heavy stagnation, and it's even put in capsules or herbal mixes in the Chinese apothecaries. I had been feeling most stuck that January when these words emerged from the tangerine trees, and the project with Helen had really jump-started a lot for me. I always felt that I should make an elixir from the tangerine tree itself, like I did with the grandmother tree, by leaving a special bowl of pure water on the earth at the core of the tree for several days. Just can't decide whether the tree needs to be in bloom, fruit, or dormant. I'll do the only wise thing and ask the trees themselves. I'm quite sure that the magical trees of Moonhaven have much yet to teach me, and I will be a devoted priestess and student. Absolutely will. And when there's been storms here, you can just see that the trees if they have to go down, they lay themselves down in such a way they don't even hurt a bush, let alone my house. And grandmother tree, over the last maybe 2-3 years, has sent one very wide arm around the entire back end of the house. So it's almost like she's cradling me in her beautiful arms. Once in a while, I'll be out there and I'll say, wonder if this tree needs to come down. And usually, within a day or two of my thought, the tree just lays itself down somewhere where it's most convenient and hurts nothing. So don't think for a minute that there's no consciousness involved in that aspect of the earth, because the trees are very alive and they don't want to fall and hurt people. They definitely do the best they can when they can. And it's something that you just like you can begin having more conversation with the animals, you can do the same with the trees, with the plants. There's a lot of life out there. And, as the words of a possible storm out in the Gulf comes today, all I can think is, not again. And I've left my water in the bathtub just in case. I haven't really undone Moonhaven from the storm yet, just not wanting to have to go through all of the packing that I did do to make things safe here. So, till we get out of hurricane season, I think I'll just leave some of the things mostly as they are, and working on getting some other power source to bring electricity here too. That's another plan. And those of you who are in areas that could be difficult with storms, do take some of this to heart and plan. Not too much, just a little, so that you're not kind of on your last nerve when something occurs and there's no time to make a good plan. Now, as far as the blood moon goes, start making a little circle here. We started with the blood moon, and we will finish talking about her as well. I don't like to just say, okay, this is difficult, this is hard, and not give some kind of alternatives as to ways to get through it better. So using flower essences is a really good way to keep the animals calmer so they don't feel the need to go out and be too wild. So using the arbor garden, if you can't get the wonderful products from Green Hope Farms, which is all I use, you can always use Rescue Remedy. That's easily available anywhere, really, from a health food store to a drugstore, I think, too. And that is good for just reducing fear, keeping calm. But the arbor garden is much better, and it makes people and animals feel like they're being held by angels. So that's a really good plan to have some of that around. And I always have good supply of that. Should you not want to go directly to Green Hope Farms, you can work through my website too. And I make gem elixirs, which certainly do equally as well. The Flash Silvermoon gem elixirs, which you can find on my website, flashsilvermoon.com. Typically for storms, I like using the Golden Armor, which is for divine protection. Sometimes I use lithium a whole lot, lithium quartz, and that one is good if you just need to chill. Sometimes, you just can't get to sleep and there's some anxiety, but it's not like fear. Then the lithium quartz is really good. And to just kind of make everything clear when you need to cleanse. Let's say you don't want to use smoke from sage, which of course you can do that too. If you want to use a gem elixir, which will fly under the radar if you're working like in a hospital or something, and you don't want people to think that you're smoking weed in the hospital, you use the gem elixir, which is Aura Cleanse, and that's exactly what it does. So that's a really good one to have as well. And also there's one, Raise the Vibe, and that's good if you just need to get your vibration elevated. And there's a bunch more. There's one called The Shift that I make yearly. As we go through these changes, sometimes we just need to shift. So that's a little bit about some alternatives that you can use should you want to help get through these times a little easier. And I'll be right back, and I can tell you a bit more about that. Be right back.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ed Robertson, host of TV Confidential. Thank you so much for listening to our program on PWRN, Passionate World Radio Network. If you like TV Confidential or any of the other programs you hear every week on PWRN, please consider supporting this station by becoming a patron of Passionate World Radio Network through Patreon. It is easy to do. It won't cost you more than a few dollars per month. And best of all, you will help PWRN continue to educate, enlighten, and entertain our global audience of 10 million strong and growing. For more information, go to patreon.com/PWRN. That's Patreon, Patreon, patreon.com/PWRN. And thank you again for listening.
Okay, this is Flash Silvermoon for What the Animals Tell Me. I'm back with you. And I was talking a bit about different kinds of alternative preps to handle the difficulty that you might be having during storm times, ways to go about helping yourself and your animals. And I talked a bit about flower essences, and another couple of the flower essences, if you have any animals that have been rescued, always the abandonment and abuse flower essence from Green Hope Farms is good, and it can be even helpful during a storm time if you have to leave the house for a minute or so and your animal has to stay home. That can be very helpful. That'll be helpful if you have any rescues at all. There's a part of them that never quite gets over that change. So that's a good one to have. And of the gem elixirs, let's see, I talked to you about a few of them. There's another one called the Bliss Wave, which sometimes you just need to feel some bliss, some real opening. And sometimes your heart just needs to open up. So that's the Aphrodite open heart is one of them, and the Bliss Wave. When you think of Bliss Wave, just think of smiling dolphins. And that's what the energy of that particular one is like. So these are all products that are totally natural, and they're only $15, and then with some shipping to get them, and they'll do an amazing amount of good for you and your critters during these difficult times. But I remember hearing about the blood moon many, many, many moons ago, and I was swimming in one of the Florida lakes and just conversing with a friend about, well, you really think this is such a rough time? I don't know. And as we got out of the lake, we saw a little alligator follow us out. So, you know, I've seen the truth of these pieces of information many, many times. So anything that I share with you, I share not because I think it's a good idea. It's because I have experienced it, and I know the veracity of the words that I share with you. There's things you can learn from books, and it's also good to really learn from experience. And staying current, because the vibrations are shifting all the time. So what's written down in books sometimes isn't always up to date. So I just share that with you. Not so much that they say how astrology, all the signs are shifted. Not so. But just information sometimes goes through changes. So stay current, stay fluid, and by all means, stay safe during these really challenging times. And sending out a great big bubble of peace and healing. Surround yourself with that bubble of peace and healing as we go into this week. Talk to you next week. Have a blessed night. Flash Silvermoon for What the Animals Tell Me, signing off.
Thank you for listening to Passionate World Radio Network, a multimedia company. You can listen to this program all over again at PassionateWorldRadioNetwork.com, Facebook.com/PWRN, Twitter.com/PWRN, GooglePlus.com/PWRN. Distinguish yourself from the ordinary. And remember, please keep listening.